Welcome to our Amud Yomi Shiur, Maseches Bava Metzia, Daf Ein Gimel Amud Beis. Just to the top of the page. Yeah, Amud Yomi. We are in the depth of the sugyas of Ribbis. Lots of different cases here. Lots of different cases. Case number one. Case number one has to do with Mashkanta. Shem should give us a tzlocha to get through this a little bit of a complicated case, but it's really not complicated if we break it to pieces. Says the Gemara, Rav Mari Barochel. Yeah, one of the Amoraim, his name was Rav Mari Barochel. The reason why he is his mother's name is mentioned, not his father, which is more the traditional way, is because his father was a ger. His mother was the daughter of Shmuel, the Amor of Shmuel. She was once captured amongst Goyim, amongst Akum, and then she married the Goy. The Goy then was Megayer, yeah, Megayer, and then she married him properly. Rav Mari, yeah, no, Rav Mari was when he was conceived. His father was not Jewish. His father was Megayer. His father converted to Judaism the right way when his mother was pregnant. So Lamaisa, when he fathered him, so to speak, he was a goy. When he was born, the father was Jewish. That's very nice. So they had a nice bris milah with his father. Yeah, but Lamaisa, the thing is that it's not so covered to connect him to this dubiously whatever Jewish person. So that's why he's named after his mother. He's yichus. Yeah, he's alleged to the mother. That's just an interesting piece of information that Rashi shares with us. You can see Rashi if you want inside. And now let's see the story that happened to Rav Mari Barochel with Mashkanta. Ooh, already questions. Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. Rav Mari Barochel mishken lahu nochri beisa. Rav Mari Barochel lent money to a nochri, to an akum. And the nochri, in return, gave him his house as a mashkon, as what? Mortgaged his house. The house, remember, it's a house, it's not a field, and it's important for later, yeah? And the house of the goy is now in the hands of who? Rav Mari Barochel. He lives there, Rav Mari Barochel. Why? Because as long as the goy doesn't pay, the house is collateralized in the hands of Rav Mari Barochel. So far, so good. Hadar Zabna Lerove. The goy, the akum, then sold the house, the mortgaged house, he sold to Rove, to another Amoira, to Rove. So now I have an interesting, unhealthy triangle over here. Why? The goy, name and address withheld. The goy, by the way, is not Rav Mari's father. Don't confuse that. The ex-goy, the name and address unknown, borrowed money from Rav Mari, did not yet pay. The house of the goy is memushkan, collateralized, mortgage, call it whatever you want. Yeah, it's memushkan to who? Rav Mari Barochel. However, the house now belongs to Rove. Yeah, the owner of the house is now not the person owing the money. And now, not only that, as you'll soon see, and I'm like spoon feeding you a little bit here, Rav Mari knew about the sale. Rav Mari actually at some point was aware of the fact that the house is sitting in doesn't belong to the person owing him the money, right? However, Rava was not aware of the fact that Rav Mari Barochel is that the house is mortgaged. I guess so. I think so. Or the guy was just too smart. Or maybe he knew there was mortgaged. He didn't know it was mortgaged to Rav Mari Barochel. That's another pshat, yeah? In other words, maybe he knew that there's an issue with the house, possibly. But so he's buying a collateralized house, and he'll have to deal with it, something as we'll see later. But Lemaisa, maybe he didn't know that it's in the hands of a Jew. That could be, yeah? Lemaisa, he didn't know that Rav Mari Barochel is the one sitting there. Okay. So then what happened? Now, before we continue, surprise, at the beginning of the sugya, we assume, and that is also sometimes true, the maskano, Rav Mari Barochel is now sitting in a house belongs to Rove, right? Okay, he's sitting in Rove's house. Poor Rove, so to speak, yeah, doesn't owe anything. So really, Rav Mari Barochel should pay rent to who? To Rove. He's owed money by the goy. That's a separate cheshbon. Somebody has to go and sue that goy to BSD, to court maybe. But Lamaisa, if you just look, keyhole vision between Rav Mari Barochel and Rava, at least at the beginning of the sugya, we assume that Rav Mari Barochel should pay Rava rent, because really he's sitting in Rava's land, and Rava is an innocent side over here. And what really happened? Notar Tresar Yarchishata. he waited, Rav Mari Barochel, the holder of the land, the one sitting on the land, he waited 12 months, an entire year, Shata, a whole year, and only then, Shokal Agar Beta, the next year, only when the second year came, then he took the rent and he started paying rent. He started paying rent dafka. He came with a wad of cash, whatever, for the second year's rent, maybe month by month, whatever. The rent issue only started bothering Rav Mari Barochel that he should pay Rove dafka the second year. Why? Yeah, does he have to pay or doesn't he have to pay? Well, he who's sitting there an entire year. Yeah, let's say the purchase was, I don't know, 3-4 months into the story. What about all the months of the first year? Ignored. Only the second year, then he paid Rove. Wait, we're in the middle. Yeah. No, so Tosfos says that they used to pay like today, month by month, and he paid it at the end of every month, even afterwards. Lamaisa is paying for the second year in rear. Okay, yes. However, but he still did not pay for the first year, only the second year. No, he did not pay for the first year. He paid him for the second year, whichever way you see it in advance or later. But Lamaisa, the first year didn't pay him, and the second year he did at some point. Now, so what's going on over here? So now explains, Rav Mari Barochel explains himself to Rove, and he says, Omerle, meaning Rav Mari Barochel coming with the cash to Rove, who's the real owner of the house, says to him, Hai deloim toy lemar agar beisa ad ha'idna, the reason why I did not bring you, meaning Mar, why I didn't bring the Rov, the Agar Beta, the rent of the house, ad ha'idna, up until now, the reason why I sort of dawdled, the reason why I postponed it until now, why? The stam mashkanta shata, which means stam and mashkanta, when a person takes a mashkanta, we all know, by the way, I mean, today I think they're more flexible. Sometimes people tell you, I'm giving you a loan, a bank or a building society, it's called whatever, and what? And they say, no, you can't pay you can't pay me back until a certain time, right? In other words, I want that frozen in my possession, in this case, for a year. Stam mashkanta shata. For 1 year, the land is in the hands of the who? Of the holder, which is the lender, right? He holds onto the apartment. And even if the original guy, the goy guy, would have come with money, and soon I'm going to explain there are two types of payment, but in general, I'm speaking now. If the goy, the original person who owes me money, would have come, let's say 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11 months after the original agreement, and he'll come, hey, Ramar Barachel, here I'm giving you now the money, and you get out of here. Lo have matzi misalikli. He couldn't have misalikli, couldn't have kicked me out and forced me out. I have the right to stay in this house for an entire year, and therefore the house is completely mine for a year. Meaning, when a person actually lent money and is sitting halachically, I mean, unless known otherwise, unless agreed otherwise, yeah, halacha is for 1 year, the person who has hold over the house because he lent, right? He cannot be kicked out, not even for 1 day, not full payment, we'll see later, not partial payment. He cannot be taken out, which means the house is his. The house belongs to Rav Mari Barochel the entire year. And therefore, what the guy sold Rava was futures. What the guy sold Rava is really, once Rav Mari Barochel is there for an entire year, then and only then the guy can pay the money and then get Rav Mari Barochel out of there, and Rava would step in. But I did not owe you anything for an entire year, because for this entire year, it did not belong neither to the goy and therefore not to you. The goy can't sell you something that's not his. I'm sorry. And therefore, for this entire year, I couldn't have actually, I had no reason to pay you because the land was simply not yours. Are you angry with the goy? Go hit him, go whatever, take him to BSD, but to the court. But between you and me, I do not owe you anything, and that's why I waited. Why is he bichlal concerned about the rent? So there are two explanations here. One explanation is he felt bad. Rav Mari Barochel had to explain himself. Maybe he's staying in Rava's house. Had the halacha be not like that, had the halacha been that he could be mistalek, let's say the halacha would have been what? That Rav Mari Barochel, upon seeing the money of the goy could force him out. Hey, get out of here. Rav Mari Barochel, I'm giving you the money. Then what? Then really the land belongs to Rava, right? He had to explain why he's not a gazlan. Poshut, I'm sitting in Rava's land. I'm stealing. I'm sitting there with that. You have to explain, no, I'm not stealing. I'm not a thief. Because really, the land never belonged to you. Because it didn't belong to your seller either. Yeah, because since I am the lender for 1 year, it's frozen in the hands of the lender. Yeah, I'm not going to details now. See, that's Bigadol. Ashta, now the land is, so to speak, defrosted. What? The second year, yeah. Ashta, the second year came, Rosh Chodesh, whatever, Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah of the second year, Lishkol Mar, Agar Beita. Now you should take the rent of the house. Why? Because now the Agar Beita, now really the house potentially can be taken away from me, Rav Mari Barochel, the Jewish Malveh. Had the Goy come to me now with the money, he could have told me, hey, here's the money. The money is in your pocket, bank transfer. Ooh, I'll show you. I'll send you by email, by WhatsApp. What? The money transfer. I'll show you. Yeah. Share screen. And what? And get out of my house. He could have done that when the second year kicked in. Oh, which means it belongs now to the Goy, not to Rav Mari Barochel, to the Loive. That now he sold that to you. So now, since the house belongs to you, I owe you the rent of the house. Of course, there's still other things to iron out between the Goy and him, possibly, but between me and you, between Rav Mari Barochel and Rava, I have to give you the Agar Beita. Now, I'll continue and then I'll explain the deeper layer here. Omerli, Rava now responded. Rava responded and said as follows. Now Rava is talking. Rava refuses to take the money. Why? Says Rava. Yadana. They have, excuse me, no. I will say it now already. Excuse me. I will say it now. There could also be an issue of ribbis here. Remember, we're learning Yezu Neshech. Why ribbis? Because Lamaise, Rava is now instead of the loive. Because Rava doesn't owe the money, but if Rava wants to get his house back, he has to make sure he will tell the guy, Mackenzie, Hey Rav Mari Barochel right now. I didn't know about this nonsense. In other words, right, I'm Rava, I want to live in my house. In mortgage, pay him right now and let me into my property, right? That's what I would have done if I was Rava. So one could say, according to some Rishonim, that Rava has an element of being like a loive. True, he didn't borrow the money, but in order to get to his collateralized house, he would probably make sure that the loan is being paid, right? So maybe Rava is like Me'ena Loive, and now Rav Mari Barochel is his Malve, and Rav Mari Barochel, if he doesn't have a good reason, the fact that Rav Mari Barochel lives in Rava's land rent-free, problem, remember? What did we say many times? If I borrow money from someone, we've seen a whole sugya in the past, right? What did we see? If I'm a malve, if I lend you money, I'm a malve, I'm not allowed to live in my borrower's land for free. That's ribbis. There was also concern, according to some Rishonim, of Mari Barochel, right? Oh my gosh, mainly between him and the goy, anything can go. Ribbis is okay. But if there's a Jew involved, oy vavoy, and I'm postponing the payment of the money, so really I'm living rent-free in the land of a Jew who's like Me'ain Eloive. Maybe that's an issue. So for that, Rav Mari Barochel said, no, I did not live rent-free because for the first year, it was just not your land. It was 1,000,000,000% just my land. It did not belong nor to the guy and therefore not to you. Yeah? In other words, there are two issues. I'm not a Gazlan. I didn't steal from you just living in your place rent-free. And also, there's no ribbis here. Why? Because of the same reason. I just didn't have to pay anything. I'm a very yashar person. I'm very honest. Boom! The second the second year came in, I'm paying you. Yeah, for the second year, because then you are the owner, because your original seller, who's the loiv, the guy, could have taken me out. Okay. Omerle answers Rove. Okay, quick question. Yeah. Okay. Omerle says Rove. Ihava yadana, had I known that this piece of land is memushkan, is mortgage to you, to Mar, yeah, then lo have zabinina lay. I wouldn't have bought it. Why not? Why wouldn't we bought it? Says the Ritva. There is a halacha in Kiddush in other places. Oni amapech b'chororo. When you know that your friend is very interested in buying something and he's almost there, he almost bought it, like a poor man who's looking through, unfortunately, the garbage, yeah, to look for something nice. Don't come and one-up him. Don't try and take over and get there before him. I see somebody running to the store to get the one last pair of shoes. I shouldn't, get there before him quickly because I know he's about to buy it. It's not a moral thing to do, right? Oh, if I know that you sit in the land right? And if the guy doesn't pay, what happens? Who'll be the owner forever? Rav Mari bar Rochel. So Rav Mari bar Rochel, who sits in the land and is a potential owner, very much so a potential owner. Had I known that, I wouldn't have bought the land, says Rove. I assume you're the one who wants to buy it, right? However, the reason, by the way, I'll tell you why it's dafka in the house, not in the field, because there's another halach of bar matzra, which we'll mention later, only applies to fields, not to houses. Now, I wouldn't have sold it. I wouldn't have bought it. Hashta, now I want to partially fix the wrong that I did. What will I do now? Now I will treat you, I will treat this case as if I was a goy, not chas v'shalom Rov is a goy. I will now behave according to goy shalo. What's goy shalo? What's the goy shalo here? Kol emes delo misalki bezuzi, but the goyim, just like we by the first year say that as long as there is no full payment, you can't get out of the land. Who? You, the Malbe who lives there. By the goyim, kol emes del misalki bezuzi l'shakil agar beita, which means, by the goyim, the way it works is that, and Rava bought it from a goy. I bought it from a goy. I will now treat that business deal. Says the Ritva, kol abam in a goy is like a goy. I bought it from the goy, right? The goyim have their own sets of laws, but when it comes to choshen mishpat, I would be like him. Meaning what? As long as there's no full payment, yeah, as long as the entire payment wasn't paid, I cannot get you out of the land, be it the first year, second year, third year, or 10th year. Which means just like by us, by the first year, you can't get the, what's his name, the malve out of the house. By the goyim, that works forever until the final time of the piroin. Now, therefore, I'll explain better soon. Therefore, the concept is, I am not the, according to goyish law, I'm not the owner of the house forever. Until full payment by the goy happens, I'm not the owner bichlal. Just like you, Rami Bar Choma, said about the first year, I'm expanding it for 10 years. Let's say the original agreement was 10 years. The house will stay by you for 10 years until, and then I'll pay the debt, says the goy. For the next 10 years, I'm not allowed to touch that land. That's a goy shalo. And mimela, I cannot take rent from you. Ananami, me too. I'll behave like the goy shalo. Lo shekilim gar beita. I will not take from you the schar dira, the rent of the house, until I or the goy will pay you the full amount. Let me explain something. There are two types of payment. One payment is the full payment. That's what I want to tell you before. Now, you'll understand it better. Let's say the person borrowed 5 million shekels, I don't know, and for 10 years it's going to stay by me until you pay me the 5 million. Okay, fine. Now, what happens if the owner of the house, the real owner, who's the real original owner of the house? The loive. No, the loive. The original is the loive, the goy. In this case, it's a goy. Now, what happens if the goy says, listen, I'm not paying you, or the loive, whichever loive, goy or Jew. The loive says to the malve, listen, I want to be in my house. I don't have the 5 million, but I have 20,000. They make the cheshbon. I have 20,000, and for 2 months, forgiving the numbers, yeah, for 20,000, which is partial payment, you get out of my house now for 2 months. I want to be back in my house for 2 months for the Yomim Tovim, for Rosh Hashanah, for Sukkot, I don't know, yeah, for Elul, yeah, and I'll take 20,000 and get out of here. That's the question. Partial payment for partial getting him out of the house, yeah, that's the shaila. Yeah, now, says the Gemara, by the goyim, there's no such thing. By the Jews, you cannot do that during the first year. During the first year, no. The Jew can say, until you pay me in full, says the malve to the loive, for the first year, I am here, bahuk or bakruk, hook, line, and sinker, I'm staying here the entire year, and even if you give me, 20,000, 30,000, I'm not staying out of here. It's my place completely, right? Completely mine. And when you'll pay me the entire 5 million, listen to the Rishonim said, the Ramban and the Rashba, it's as if you buy the house back from me. That's what they say. The Malvi is the full owner for the entire year. But the Goyim, it's exactly the same, but forever. That's all. Says Rove, I feel so bad that I bought that land, yeah, because I thought you're the one who wants it first, right? I'm trying to fix, yeah, to amend my Avera b'shoigeg, maybe he knew that somebody had it, but he thought it was Mackenzie. He didn't know it was Omar Barochel. Therefore, since I bought from a goy, I have the laws of goyim here. Goyim, they cannot do any partial payment. They can't play around and say, I want the next 3 months, January, February, and then later August, let's say. For those months, you get out of here, Mr. Malve, and I'll pay you for these months. No, for the goyim, there's no such thing. Until there's no full payment, by the way, one of them is called Pidion, one of them is called Piroin. Until there's no full Piroin, full payment, you can't get the person out of that, not even for 1 day, right? Even if you pay for the value of that day, which means the rent belongs to the Malve who's sitting there, not to anybody else. Says Rabbi, you don't have to pay me the rent. Very good. You don't have to pay me the rent. Baruch Hashem. That's the story. That's the story. Okay. Now, why did I stress the fact that this is an apartment, a flat, and not a field? Because there's another halacha called bar matzra, and we've seen it not that long ago. Bar matzra means if you have a field, yeah, and your next door neighbor has obviously his field next to yours, right? If you want to sell the field, who's the first one that you're supposed to approach? Halachically, the neighbor, because he wants to have a bigger field, right? This applies to fields. It does not apply to apartments. And that's Halacha in Shulchan Aruch, and that's what the Ritva says over here. And therefore, one could argue and say, it's very nice, Rav is being so nice. But if there's a halacha of a bar matzra, yeah, that bar matzra, by the way, applies not only to the next door neighbor, bar matzra also applies to the person who lives in the place as a malve, collateralized to him, because he's the one who's used to the place. We've seen it not long ago. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? Again, bar matzra means, yeah, I'm supposed to sell the place, either who's the first one first served, who has the right of way, either next door neighbor or the person living in the house. A lot of times people who rent houses, eventually they buy them. They're used to the school, they're used to the garden, they're used to the area, they're used to everything, they like the place, they have the right of way. They want to sell, that's only true by fields, it's not true by apartments. Since this was an apartment, right, but the halacha b'matzah doesn't apply, and that's why the field will stay in the house in the hands of Rava and not of Mari Barochel. Had it been a field, then really Ramar Barochel could have taken Rava to Beis Din and say, no, I'm the first one that's supposed to get it, and not you. But because it's house, it doesn't apply. That's a side point. Okay. Yeah, questions are absolutely welcome at this point. I want to now relate to two questions that were asked here, or two comments. Okay, Peretz was saying that really is from his experience, the halacha of bar matzra does apply to who? Applies also to apartments. Maybe there's such an opinion. It's not what the Ritva says. It's not what Shulchan Aruch says as far as I remember. But okay, good to know. It's not halacha shiur. Secondly, what you said. Again, I'm repeating. If in both Jewish law and Lahavdil Goyish law, when the person lent money and he's now sitting in the mortgaged apartment, right? If he was fully paid, no problem. You paid me in full the 5 billion, the 5 million thing, fine. Dan Maran Malve anymore, done deal. Give me the entire money and I'm out. However, as long as I'm there and you did not pay me in full, you cannot tell me, you know what, let's, mix and match, play around. I'll pay you for let's say I've been out of my house for 8 months. I miss the house so much. I want 2 months back in my house. And for that, I'll pay you 20,000 out of the loan. That you cannot do. In other words, as long as I am the Malvin, I'm sitting there pretty, and I cannot be kicked out, not even for 1 day, for 1 shekel, or for 20,000 for 1 month. That's the idea. Therefore, the only owner of the house, unless game over, and the goy paid of Mari Barochel, for the first year of Mari Barochel is what? He's the full owner of everything, and he doesn't owe Rava anything. That's the point. In goy law, the same thing applies forever. That's the only difference. Says Rava, I want to be nice to you because I feel bad about the whole deal. Says Rava, I will now, habomin hagoy kegoy, since I bought it from a goy, and he would, yes, not dare step into your house, not even for 1 minute for 1 shekel, right? It's not a modular thing. Therefore, I, Rava, will keep the law that way. And what will I do? I will say, I'm not taking rent from you because really you have every right in the world to live in my house because it's not yet my house. When the goy, I'm repeating what the Rishonim is saying, when the goy will pay you, then it's as if only then I bought the house. Don't owe me any rent up until then. Very clear. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. It was not the easiest case, but I think Baruch Hashem got it right. But yeah. Weiter, next case. More and more cases of ribis, a lot of small anecdotes, small cases do with ribis. Next case. Omer Rove mi Barnish Rav Ashi. Rove of the city of Barnish told Rav Ashi the following. Yeah, Chazimar Rabbanon. Look what these rabbis are doing. Chazimar Rabbanon. Rabbanon, the rabbis, what do? The Kachli Ribisa. Oh, those rabbis, they eat ribis, they enjoy ribis, they take ribis. Why? Oh, what's a big story? The Yahavi Zuzi Acham Tishrei. They give money for wine in Tishrei. Tishrei is always the time when it's cheap because that's the time of the harvest. Okay, so what do? They do psikas mois. They say they go into the wine store and they say, "Ah, you have a lot of different wines over here. Okay, we're putting like a not a down payment. We're prepaying. We're prepaying. How much is a liter of wine now? 100 shekel. Yeah, umavcherila beteves. We put the wine. Which wine? They don't know which one. But we put already we paid in cash when it was cheap, worth 100. But they're only going to get mavchira. They choose the wine that they like in teves, and they get good wine in what? In teves. Now, the problem is as follows. Now, is it okay, quiz time, is it okay to go to a store that has wine? Look, the store, like the store in the Merkaz, hundreds of bottles of wine there. Can I go there in Tishrei when it's cheap and get it for 300 later for the price of 100? Yes. Why? You're right that it's not, but I would say it's okay. Why? Yesh lo. If the person has a schor in the store right in front of me, it's kilo I bought it. However, you are right, Yosef. The reason why it should have been an issue, and that's why Rove Mibanish thought that this is horrendous and it's ribis. I'll tell you why. You know why? Because, you know why? Wine tends to go sour. I don't know about today. Back then, a lot of wine, a lot of, barrels, out of many, it's like I gave money for nothing. It's not called yesh loy when the schor that I have is very likely to go bad. If it's very likely, every wine or bottle that's here on the shelf in the store is a gamble. Maybe that will go bad, maybe the other will go bad. It's not called yeshlo. He has something flying in the air. He has something potential because every wine may go bad. Yeah. Lahavdil, not a nice example. Can you make a shidduch for your daughter who's 5 years old? Let's say decide 100% that the 6 years old who's such a good boy in cheder will be her chosen, even if you're very conservative. No, he's 6 years old, very zis. Maybe the age of 20 will be off the derech. In other words, it's not called yeshloi. Nothing is clear. And wine more than wheat, says Rashi, tends to go bad. So l'choira, it's called enloi. They don't really have the wine because it's a potluck. Give me a second, and I'll hear you. Omerlei, no, it's not a problem. They know what they're doing. In hunami achama kayahavi. They put their the money down for wine. Achala for vinegar, loika yahavi, right? They don't want to buy vinegar, they want to buy wine. So still, how do you know if it'll be wine and not vinegar? Says the Gemara, big yisoid. Meikora de chamra de chala, which means the wine that stayed good wine in Tevis retroactively was always good. Now listen to unbelievable thing in science. The wine that became vinegar in Tevis had a problem already in Tishrei, which was not discernible, which was not evident. What? Once no. Therefore, only at the time of Tevis we can tell which one was always good, which one was always bad. In order to avoid the ekachtos, my friend, no. When they stepped into the store in Tishrei, some wines were wines and the other ones were vinegar. Let's say 50, those are wine and those 50 are vinegar. They are vinegar disguised in the disguise of wine. But it's not like everything is up in the air, we don't know. Yeah, we don't know, but once we will know in Tevis, lemafreya, retroactively, when I bought wine in Tevis, it was always wine, and that wine was always there. The wine that survived and became good wine was always good wine, and it was very stable. It was there in the bottle, nice glass bottle, nice and sturdy. Maybe vinegar, true, but the vinegar one was always vinegar, and that I never wanted. I never put my money for vinegar. And mimel, it's not called enlo, yeshlo yain, the yeshlo vinegar, the wine is the one that I placed my bet on. The mafreya, I always knew that the wine, the good one, is what I wanted because the vinegar one was already vinegary in Tishrei. We just couldn't tell. So it's not called like everything is floating in the air. Lemafreya, there's very clear distinction. Let's say this bottle is wine, the other bottle is chaymetz in disguise, and therefore that's called yeshloi, because the wine that I took at the end was always there and was potentially and practically v'chule actualized itself as wine all the time. There's a cue. Yes. Question? No, Yosef was first. Yes. Now, next case. Ravina. Ravina Havayav Zuzi. Ravina gave money. Lebnei Akra de Shanvoso. Akra de Shanvoso is the county of Shanvoso. There was a river called Shanvoso. There was like a county, an area around Shanvoso, and he gave the people there money in order that they should give him wine later. Okay? In other words, they would sit there by the river. Ravina, again, would give them money in order to give him wine when? Again, same story. They should give me wine for a cheap price later. Yeah, and that's okay if they have the wine. And they had the wine, all very nice. The problem was the shafchile tfei kufisa. At the end of the season, in other words, he gave money Tishrei, they sold him in Tevis, which is okay under certain conditions. All of a sudden, he sees that they would add another kufisa, another basket full of wine. He, let's say, closed on them for, I don't know, 10 gallons. They would give him like a bit of an extra at the end. Also, l'kameda Rav Ashi, Ravina came to Rav Ashi. Omar Le, Ravina is asking Rav Ashi, Mishari, is that allowed? Maybe that is Ribbis. Because Lamaisa, I waited for 3 months, and that is of itself is okay. But now they're adding, they're giving me more. Maybe in their mind, they're giving me more because, and they're Jewish. They're Jewish. Maybe they're giving me more because why? I waited, and for the time I waited, they're giving me extra. Well, that's a garnata. Maybe that's a problem. Omar Le, yes, it's okay. You're asking if it's allowed, it's permitted. Why? Achuli hu dekamachli gaboch, which means they did not actually tell you anything about we're giving you extra because you waited. No. You paid. They gave you the wine. They filled it up to the 5 gallons, blah, 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 blah. All is done. After that, they gave you extra as a nice gift, a gift for our customers. We respect our customers, and we give them a bit of an extra. Since ribbis or waiting was not mentioned, it's okay. Some Rishonim say, sorry to spoil the fun, some Rishonim say, and in the Noise Kelim, that only applies by Mekach Umemka, not ribbis of alone. In other words, if somebody lent money, remember this is all the Rabbanon. Why? It's derech Mekach Umemka. It's a sale with the flavor of ribbis. But if the L word is there, if there's a clear loan, and let's say somebody paid you lent someone 10,000 shekels, he gave you 10,000 from his own goodwill. After the 10,000, he pauses and says, take another 500. Such a nice, no, that could be an issue. Maybe. Why? Because it's a loan. Here, since all things with the Rabbanon, it's buy and sell, it's purchasing, Mekach Memkar, and they didn't say, we're doing it because why? Because you waited. They're just doing it with a big smile on their face, customer service, then it's okay. By loan, we'll see at the end of the parak, the story with the loan. Omarle, now Ravina is still concerned with, he has another concern not related to ribbis, and he's asking, Ho'ara lav didui. That piece of land is not even theirs. The piece of land where they grow their vineyard, where the vineyard is, yeah, that entire, all this wine, come to think of it, is one big piece of theft. Why? Because, you know why? What did they do? What they did was very smart. They'd have very dubious, interesting business, says Rashi. What they would do is as follows. Those Bnei Akra de Shanvoso, they were rich people, powerful people who were landowners who couldn't actually pay the tax to the king. They would run away and abandon their fields. And those people would step in and pay the tax and get hold of the land. Interesting business. But Lamaisa, Karka in an Exelis, the Karka land still belongs to the original owner, as opposed to in Bava Kama we saw, right, by Metaltal in this Shinui. By Karka, the Karka still belongs to poor Mr. Non-taxpayer who ran away to Hawaii, ran away to somewhere else, right, because he couldn't pay. So really, they're Gazlonim, and I'm buying wine from thieves. Is that okay? Answers, who, Rav Ashi? No, Omerlei, no problem. Ara letaska mishabda. The land is meshubad to the taska. Taska, tax, same letters, yeah? In other words, taska means the tax that has to pay it on the land, dafka. The land is meshuba to who? To Mr. King. The king, the government, they're the ones that the land is meshuba to them, yeah, and the king has the legal right to demand the tax from the landowner. Dina de Malchusa Dina. Umalka Omar, the king who is the real owner of everything, like in Israel, all the lands belong to the government. The king says, Man taska lechul ara. That's all. The king, the government, the coalition, whoever, there is a law that says whoever pays the tax, he's the one who's allowed to stay in the land. That's the law. When it comes to dinei mominus, to the laws of money, to choshen mishpat, to monetary laws, the government decides. That's halacha. We saw it in Bavakama a few times. We see it in Gittin. So we see what? Since the one buying the land is who? Not buying, owning the land. Owning the land is the big boss, the big brother, the KGB over there, the government. And therefore, the government said, listen, we decided we keilu franchise it to whoever pays the tax. And since those guys, those people, Obnei Akra de Shanvasa, they may be nice, they may not be nice people, but they pay the taxes. And if they pay the taxes, they're the owners of the land, legally and therefore halachically. And therefore, don't feel bad from buying from them. They really are halachically the owners. Okay? Another case. We have lots of interesting small cases, each one a gem. Rav Papa is now approaching Rove, again complaining about the rabbis. Chazimar, look, Rabbi, Hani Rabbonon, those people, the Rabbonon, yeah, other Rabbonon, Talmidei Chachomim, the Yahavi Zuzi Akarga de Inshi. Karga sounds like charges to me. Karga is the per capita, per head, per capita tax that Jews had to pay the government. Not goyim. Interesting. Yeah, Jews had to pay more, I guess. And what? Now, what happens? Those Talmidei Chachomim would pay the tax, the per capita tax, instead of people who couldn't. Yeah. In other words, let's say every person has to pay every month, I don't know, one zuz. The Talmid Chacham who had money would pay for his poor neighbor the one zuz. Okay. That sounds to me as potentially a loan, because eventually he wants to get it back. And they would make them work harder, which means there are two explanations here. Explanation number one: let's say every month the person has to pay the government per capita head 500 shekels, right? Mr. Talmid Chacham pays for his neighbor, non-Talmid Chacham, 500 for the neighbor, and then tells the neighbor, yeah, not that he told him, we know that eventually, yeah, the poor person will have to pay the 500. So that looks like a loan. And top of that, you would also tell him, now work for me, work hard. Be my ozeret, wash my floor for me. Meshubad. They would like enslave them. That's ribbis. Because eventually they will get their money back, the 500. Plus, the Vaila, meanwhile, they make them work like an ozeret that's worth 30 shekels an hour for free. For free. So why is that called ribbis? How can they do that? Omar Lei, oh, it's a good thing you ask. Ashta now, if I was dead and I died, lo amri lechu hamilsa. I don't know why he says that. He says, I'm happy you asked the question. I don't want to leave this world without answering you the question. Maybe he didn't want people to think badly of Talmidei Chachomim. I'm happy I'm alive to answer the question. Ach Yom Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes gives us a whole different perspective of this whole relationship with the taxpayers and the non-taxpayers. Muharkayu dehani. Muharkayu means, says Rashi, choisem avdus shalohim. Their seal of slaves, of all those citizens, all of them, where is it sitting? Betafsa de Malkemonach. It is in the box of the Melech. In other words, the king is the one owning, so to speak, every citizen in this country, payers and non-payers. And he is the one who plays around with everyone, like China. Umalka Omar, the king said, Man de lo yav karga. Whoever doesn't pay tax, lishtabed leman de yav karga. Whoever doesn't give tax should be meshubad and be enslaved and work for free for the one who's giving the taxes. It's the law. What? And Chacham, what? The king saying it, but we follow what he says. Dinah the Malchusa. Not only did the Malchusa, the reason why Mr. Taxpayer was the Chachamim can tell the neighbor, the non-taxpayer, you wash my floor now for free, because that's what the king said. And the king is the one owning everybody. Ritva repeats the same concept from before, the same motto, and he says, whoever comes mitzad goy is like the goy. Since I paid the tax to the goy, I'm the good boy who paid the taxes, I'm kilu instead of the melech. And the melech said, everyone are my avodim. That's how it worked by Bavel. Everyone are my slaves. And I'm telling slave number one to work for slave number two, right? And therefore, that's a system. In other words, they're not enslaving them because ribbis. It's not like the Talmud says, I paid you and I lent you. Nothing to do with lending. It's not lending. I paid your tax. Therefore, legally, I'm your owner. I'm your, you have to work for free now for me. That's part of the legal system. It's not because I paid you, therefore you have to pay me extra. That's not the mechanism here. That's not the dynamics. Therefore, it's okay. Now comes, of course, yeah, if we are liberal over here, we may have the question, how can Talmidei Chachamim Bichlal enslave anybody, right? Like make him work like his slaves. I'm sure they treated them nicely. They just told them, work for free. That's the law. Now I'm allowed to make you work for free for me. However, there is another story that brings the issue of enslaving another Jew. Rav Seuram, never met him before. Rav Seuram apparently was the Achua de Rava. I never knew that. Rava had a brother called Rav Seuram. Seuram. Yeah, he was a brother of Rava. Avatakif inshi deloy ma'alu. He would have attacked, he would have caught people that were bad people. I don't know how bad they were, but he would take people who were over Avera, people who would sin in public, maybe bad people. He would take them, he would take them and make them schlep. He would put them, place them, as workers in Rava's chariot. I'm saying chariot. It's a fancy carriage. Guharka is a fancy carriage. Rava was like a melech or Rosh Hashiva. He had his limousine, he had his Porsche, and those people would be enslaved to schlep it, to take it, because they were bad people. Omar le Rove told him, don't feel bad about it. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to make them work hard because they are nasty people. Why? The Tnina. It says in the Brisa, I didn't yet see this in Halacha. I want to see it. The Geder, Bli Neder, I'll see. But if you see a person who is not behaving properly, halachically, you see a person is not doing the right thing, yeah, and let's say you have the koach of a rov, you're allowed to make him work hard like an eved. You're allowed to actually make him work in a hard, harsh way. You can't insult him, you can't hit him, but you're allowed to make him work hard in a harsh way. Yeah, how do you know that? Amud loymar, it says in the Torah, that the Poshup shot of the Pasuk says you should enslave the Goyim, not Yidden, ubachechem. Lamaisa, the Pasuk, the real way to read the Pasuk is, but you can see it on the side in the Gemara, you should enslave the Goyim forever. When it comes to Jews, you should not do avodas paruch to a Jew. You can't make a Jew is not allowed to cause another Jew to work avodas paruch. However, here it's not a pshat, it's like a drosha, like a Hasidic kind of thing. We punctuate the pasuk in a different way. I'm repeating. In other words, you're allowed to enslave the guy and your brother. Am I allowed to enslave a brother of mine, a yid who is noy kashura, who behaves nicely, who behaves kashura, who behaves okay? Talmud Lomer, no. The proper way of reading the pasuk is if they behave like a brother, if they behave like a good halachic Jew, you're not allowed to make him work hard. But if the person is a posher, if the person is a mazid, is a baal aveira, then we punctuate the pasuk in such a way, who says that kind of brother, which is not like a brother, he is connected the first part of the pasuk to the goyisha part, where you are allowed to enslave him. I'd rather educate him. Today it's not going to work. They're only going to rebel. Of course not. I'm not saying Tinach Shenishba, but I'm saying Me'ikar Adin, if a Jew is misbehaving, you're allowed to treat him harshly so he learns his lesson. Amar Rav. Yeah, let's continue. The last case. Okay. Another case, last for today. Amar Rav Chamed. Another statement of Rav Chamed. Hi man de'yav zuze lechavri. A person gave money to his friend. Lemizban lechamra. Again, the same story again and again and again. Now, again, I'm giving 100 shekel for my friend and telling him, oh, listen, I want some nice wine. It's Tishrei. I know that halachically, I'm allowed to buy for 100 shekel the wine now in Tishrei. Okay? And get me the wine, which later will be expensive. By the way, here so far, there's no issue of ribbis. Why? I want you to buy me now the wine quickly before the prices go up. And you are my messenger for that. I'm sending a lot of headache now, but telling you that the person who accepted upon himself to be the shliach said, okay, I'll buy it for you. He verbally agreed, I'll buy it for you. And if I don't buy it for you, if I lazy around and I don't buy it for you, I just drink my coffee all day long and I don't buy it for you, I'm pusher and I won't go to the shop and I'll go too late when it's too expensive, then I'll compensate you for my own money. Not only the 100 shekels I have to give you back, I'll also give you extra 50 shekels from my own pocket. I'm mechuyev, maybe it's getting money from it another way, I don't know. I'm a, how do you call it in English? Personal purchaser, right? There is such a thing. Yeah, Kenyan Prati, I think, right? It does exist. There are women who buy clothes for other women. No, personal shopper, right? My wife told me there's such a thing. We don't have that from some reason. No, a personal shopper, it's a lady who knows about fashion. She buys the shop, she shops for other people. Yeah, so he's a maven in wine, he's a connoisseur, and he's a good buyer. Yeah, he says goodbye. And what? And he can now buy you the wine for cheap before the prices go up. He's a maven. And if he doesn't get to it, he'll pay you extra compensation. Now, there was no, I'm saving you a lot of work here. There was no kinyan. There's a verbal promise. Okay. Now the question is what happens. Listen to this. Let's restart. Amar Rav Chome. Hi man de Yav Zuzi lechavre. Mr. Client gave money to his friend, the personal shopper, lemizban leichama, to buy him wine for him for the cheap price. Upasha v'loy zabin lei. He was pusha, he was negligent. He stayed home, he went on vacation, and what? And he did not buy him the wine the right time. Oh, now the client has to spend 300 shekels for wine, not 100. So who has to pay extra? Obviously who? The shopper. The shopper said, if I don't buy you, I'll compensate you from my own pocket. So the question is, what kind of wine does he have to compensate? In other words, what kind of wine is it? In other words, what do you mean compensating? The compensation should go lefi the wine I would have bought you. So now the question is, the client can say, I'm not continuing explaining about that. The client can say, oh, I didn't say which wine you can get for 100. No, right now there are different types of wine. And what? Maybe it's the fanciest Chardonnay. Maybe it's some sweet caramel Mizrahi simple wine. So now, what kind of wine does he have to compensate him with? What kind of wine is it, right? Sometimes you go to a restaurant, they compensate you with an extra dessert because they did something wrong. What kind of compensation is it that he's supposed to get? What kind of wine was on stake because they didn't specify it? Mishalem lei kedeka azil aparvasa de zol shafat. Interesting name, yeah? In other words, he should pay the average. There was a town called Parvasa de Zul Shafat. There was a very big wine place. The average wine is the wine of Parvasa de Zul Shafat. Maybe Zol. Tosa says it was on the cheaper side, regular wine. Yet, in other words, the client, as angry as he may be, cannot say, oh, you'd have bought me the fanciest champagne from France, so compensate me with thousands. No, I will compensate you by giving you what? The wine that is the average, the regular. Amar Meimar, okay, fine, but he should compensate him. Who says he should really compensate him? The Gemara is now doubting even that. Amar Meimar, Amrita l'shmaita kameder of Zvid min Ardo. I said that sugit of Zvid of Nardo, Omar, and then he told me, Kika Amar Rav Chome only says that the shopper should compensate the client. Hanimil behind stam. If the client said, I want you to get me any wine, wine, didn't specify any wine. Aval behind ze loy. Let's say he told him, hey, Mr. Shopper, I want you to get me the specific wine, with the touch of cherry, with all these special wines. I want very specific wine, and he didn't get the wine, even though he was negligent. He doesn't have to compensate. The shopper doesn't have to compensate him at all. Why? Who said that they would sell it to him for cheap? In other words, that specific wine, who said it's in the store? And who said he can get it for cheaper, right? Not everyone is in every store. So even though it's his fault he was negligent, even if he would have been diligent and gone to the store, we're not sure he could have gotten that specific wine. We can only punish him for what? For not getting wine that he could have gotten. I ask you to go to Chef Ashuk and buy me regular Kedem wine. Of course it's there. Why didn't you go? Oh, you went 2 days later? The sale is over. Oh, that's a good example for 2023. I'm asking, let's say there's a big sale on wines, or big sale on what? On dresses for the wife, yeah? And I want you to go, well, it's still sale. I know, you live in Rishon, I don't know. Oh, there's a sale going there, go get it now. You missed the boat. Yeah. Oi, why? You should have bought me. But if I'm asking for a specific one, who says it's in the store? Who said they would give it to you? Maybe it's already pre-sold to somebody else, right? We don't know, and therefore it doesn't have to pay him anything. Ravashi Omar, Ravashi says even more. Afilu yain stam, even if the shopper was asked to buy just any wine, nami loi, he does not have to compensate him at all. Wow, my time. Why is that? Asmachta v'asmachta loi kanya, which means because his whole business is asmachta. What does asmachta mean? Just like if a person goes chas v'sholem to a casino, chas v'sholem, or goes to where gambling online, chas v'sholem, and what? And he puts in money. Is the money rightfully owned by the person getting the money? Not necessarily. The person gives the money without really wanting to give it. He wants to gain the million. He wants to make the million. That's why smachta means I have some kind of commitment which is not serious. Me'atzmoi migufoi, essentially, what? Not binding. Very well, because I did not really meant what I said, which means, says Rashi, and I told you that before, there was no kinyan. The shopper and the client didn't actually sign an agreement and picked up the sudar as a kinyan. He verbally said it. When a person verbally says, yeah, I'll go to the sale, I'll buy you something great and good, and if not, I'll pay you extra. It's empty talk. Why? Because you never know what's going to happen. This is something, as we'll see later, the Gemara says, it's not in his hands. Who says that he'll go to the shop and maybe all the wine will be already taken? It's a sale. It's cheap time. Maybe you won't find it. How can you be mischayv on something that's not up to you, right? In other words, I'm mischayv too. I'll go to Sprinzelovsky's store and I'll buy the wine from him. Maybe Sprinzelovsky will tell him all the wine here is already pre-sold to somebody else, right? Maybe he'll close the shop on me. Maybe he won't do business with me. You can't be mischayev on something that depends on a third party. Therefore, this whole agreement is not a serious agreement. It's a Mickey Mouse agreement. It's a smachta. It's not serious. Asmachta loy kanya. Asmachta is not koina. Let's quickly finish. Frag the Gemara, Ravashi, according to Ravashi, Maishna Moditnan, Ravashi that says Asmachta loy kanya. Why is that different from the Mishnah, which we'll see later on in the Masechta? It says that an oris can tell the balabais, Im oivir veloy avid, ashalem b'meitava. Let's say a person is an oris. It says, yeah, mister, I will work your land. You have a piece of land. You're a lawyer in Tel Aviv. You have no idea how to work the land. I'll work your land for you for a percentage. And if I'm neglectful, if I sit cross-armed and don't do anything, I will pay you like the best of the land. What's the difference? Why? Maybe it's also a smachta, because maybe it's not up to him to do it, I don't know, to make it grow. Says the Gemara, it's not the same. Hosam beyodoi, there it is in his hand. Over here, lav beyodoi. Over there, lemaisa, yeah, if I try to work hard, unless there's a blizzard, there's a cold, I can work the land. If I sit cross-armed, who's stopping you from working, you Mr. Lazy, right? Only you. You knew that. You knew that the work of the land depends on you, not the results, but at least try. The shaken here, when I go to the shop, it depends on the other person. Maybe he won't sell it to me. Maybe all the while. Oh, Toysa says something even smarter. Toysa says maybe the prices will go up. It's not like today the Marks and Spencer, there's like a sale for 2 weeks. No, it's just inflation. Maybe all of a sudden you've been to the supermarket when all of a sudden they come with a sticker with a higher price. It happened to me more than once, right? In other words, it's not up to me to buy for the cheaper price because maybe the rate will go up before I get to the shop. I'm not in charge of the entire market price, right? Because he's not in charge, it's not in his hands. It's called a smachta. It's not a serious commitment, and he doesn't have to pay him anything unless they make a kinyan. But if there's no kinyan, stam verbal, it's not mechayiv, it's only in a smachta. Thank you very much. It's loch rabba. And ein dal without no shiur tomorrow. There is a shiur by myself tomorrow. I don't know if we'll have it online or not. And tomorrow we have, because it's a day off of Yom Independence Day of Israel. And we have tomorrow what? We have a day of Yom Iyun. Thank you to everybody here in Abbas Shalom. Thank you to everybody in Torah Anytime and even on YouTube. And thank you all. On Thursday, there's shiur. Next week, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'll try and maybe record from Chutz La'aretz. I'll try to do my best. I'll be very busy, but I'll try to record and send recordings. And the worst comes to worst, we'll repeat that when I come back. We'll revise. I'll do what I can. Maybe I'll find somebody else to give shiur in Gemara. And let's hope. Let's hope. Tomorrow, the subject of my shiur tomorrow is interesting, I think. And that is the start is, are you allowed to drive the car on Shabbos? If you are a person who's very close to the American president, are you allowed to drive your car on Shabbos in order to make it to the inauguration? because some people say that it's allowed. Why? Some people are not saying the name because they say there's a halacha. So they say, interesting, that if you're a person who's close to the king or the president, you're allowed to be over all the averos in the Torah in order to keep good relationship with the king. I'd like to know if there's a source for that or no. Let's discover that and more tomorrow. Thank you very much. Atzlacha Rabba. Thank you all and Atzlacha Rabba.